Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. Today we're going to continue on with some more post-punk, though I am a little confused about this one. We are going to be looking at a new entry from Have a Nice Life. This one's called Bloodhail, and I remember this album art. And for some reason, I kind of thought that these guys were post-rock, not post-punk. But maybe this song specifically fits the post-punk genre. I don't know. We're going to get into this and see what's going on. It's nice to revisit this band. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, real gritty production here. Even the drums have just a ton of compression on them, almost some distortion, I would say. The raw width and reverberation of that guitar makes it feel like I'm underwater. It's a really interesting choice. Leading to that underwater drowning sensation is just how far down in the mix these vocals are. I'm really digging the counterpoint going on in the vocals there as well, having the dual lines. That tambourine shines through, it just cuts through the entire mix. It's a really interesting choice. Everything about this mix is really intriguing to me, actually. I love the way those two melody lines are playing off of each other. Yeah, that snare is so much fun. It's not even just the distortion or the compression, it's also that the snare's turned off and it has that real tinny sound to it to begin with. Yeah, the guitar shifting to that very light tremolo picking. I don't know, it kind of feels like there's attacks in the very light attacks, but other times it doesn't. It feels like it's just held out notes. A little bit of like a phaser sound going on now. slowly removing layers. The guitar is gone, that phaser sound's gone. Bass is gone. Bass kick is gone. Massive reverb just on every instrument though. Yeah, 100%. This song makes me feel like I'm underwater. Every bit of the mix seems to work within that auditory threshold of creating that atmosphere of being submersed in something more viscous or dense than air. It's a very interesting sound, especially when you take the fact that there's so many moving vocal parts there at the end that it almost feels like, to me, a drowning in one's own thoughts. I'm not sure if that's what they're really going for. That's the impression I'm getting though. And it's a fantastic way to go about it. I think music has probably the most advantage at portraying that specific concept, more so than any visual medias or even books. I don't know. I think music is just well equipped for approaching that concept, and this is specifically why we can create the feeling of being submersed or overwhelmed with all these effects that we use, but we can also very vividly create this idea of having too many voices in one's own head, too many thoughts going on at one time, not being able to slow the brain down. It's really fantastic to hear almost every aspect of this song approach the mix like that. It isn't even so much about the music itself. It really is about that mix, and I think it elevates this song because when we start digging into the music of it, what's actually written on the paper, it's not a hyper complex song. And something I've noticed throughout all these post punk songs we've checked out this week is simplicity in structure, which makes sense coming from punk. Punk is not necessarily a genre known for complex song structure, but almost all of these songs really stick around one idea and maybe a variation or a small difference in a secondary idea. And once again, this is a song. Has really one idea from start to finish and slowly builds on it in different ways. The bass and the drum are pretty much the same throughout the song. The lyrics, the vocal track barely changes. It's mostly about adding layers on it. And the guitar part, well, it moves through three different ideas. We have the melody line and then either the legato tremolo picking or the held out notes. Like I said, it's kind of bouncing back and forth on whether there's actually attacks in those tones or not. And then the phaser sound, which replaced that. I'm not sure if that was the guitar itself, but it replaces the concept of being the higher register melody aspect. So, but the core of the song really doesn't change. It's really just the guitars and then additional vocal lines. So there's not a lot of complexity in the composition of the song. It's one concept that we slowly change ideas on, which, yeah, I mean, punk kind of does that. A lot of punk I've heard kind of follows more of an ABABCB pattern, your typical verse chorus concept. But I'm sure there's plenty of punk out there that I haven't heard because it's not a genre I've actually explored a ton of that does stuff like what we've checked out this week with post punk, where it's really just bouncing back and forth between two ideas or staying within a single idea. And it's interesting to see Once again, not the sound of punk being utilized, but the experimentation of punk, and in this case specifically, the experimentation of song structure. Now, another thing I noticed here, and it also happened yesterday when we checked out Idols, is the punk vocalizations, the woes, whoa, putting that behind the words, the vocals with lyrics to them. That happens all over the place here. To me, that's a very punk thing. Pop rock ended up utilizing it as well, but to me, that's going to be a punk thing. And I think it's really cool that that is something that has continued to show up in some of these post-punk songs to further drive that lineage of where their inspirations come from. Now, as for the music itself, I don't know if there's much to talk about. I mean, we've landed on this song structure and the mix. There isn't anything in here that really stands out to me, I would say, other than maybe the simplicity of it also adds to some weight. The drums are just alternating bass kicks and snare hits. The bass line is a bit of a walking bass line, but it doesn't move too much. I think it really just plays the same lick over and over for the entirety of the song. The opening guitar line had a little bit of complexity to it, but it got simpler and simpler and simpler as it went. we went from a semi-complex line into whole notes, or not even whole notes. I mean, these were notes that were being held over multiple bars. So just held out notes, tied together whole notes if you want to get into notation. And then these phaser sounds, which took that idea of lengthy notes and just put a lot of space in there. We had an attack and then a drop off and then rest. So it became even simpler, in fact, that we still had one note per 2 bars or whatever, but it wasn't even present for the entirety of the time. The length of the time was what was removed rather than the complexity of it. And I don't know, it's just, to me, I get this idea of drowning. Not only do we have the massive reverb, but the fact that when you begin to drown, you can still see the surface. There's still, you know, that that will that you can get, that optimism that you can get back to the surface. But as the song goes on, I feel like a lot of that optimism leaves. The drive and energy in the opening guitar line turns into just whole notes, turns into basically these efforts to get a note out. You get the first note out, I mean, you get the attack off, and then it just fades out, and then you're left with nothing. There's no energy there anymore. Uh, Even the instruments cutting out could be slowly, losing sight of the light above the surface, and slowly, being encompassed by the darkness. And once again, I'm going to say I don't know if any of this has anything to do with the song. I didn't catch any of the lyrics for an interesting reason, and this ties back into everything though. The lyrics are pushed, the vocals are pushed so down in the mix that they are literally being overwhelmed by the atmosphere, by the width of the music around it, that it's very hard to decipher, especially when you add the lower range and the reverb on the vocals as well. I think that muddies it up a little bit, so it makes it even difficult to understand the words themselves. Not even if they were just sung by themselves, I think it would still be a little muddier and a little more difficult to understand. But then you put the music on top of that, and the music's louder, and it's even more difficult to understand the words. And yeah, that's just every bit of this song is telling me that that's the story, and I think that's really cool. However, I am interested what the lyrics say. This is where you guys come in though. Hit me up. Am I close on this interpretation, or am I getting a completely different reading from the music than the intentions of the song, especially when the lyrics are included in the context of it all? And it is interesting that I remember Have a Nice Life as post rock. Is post rock and post punk, similar in a sense? Are they sibling genres? I know they're both post genres. I can kind of hear some post rock in here, especially the single idea and the dirty mix and the sort of gradual change of the song from start to finish, the slow burn aspect that post rock is known for. But I can also hear some of those punk ideas and the rejection of the status quo, of the rejection of normal music composition. So I don't know. I can see both of these. Is this a band that sits in both areas? Let me know in the comments. When you're done commenting, you can head up to the description box. There's a link in there for a Linktree, which is super nifty. It's a nice menu with everything related to the channel, whether you'd like to support us through Patreon, follow me on Twitter, join the Discord community, any of that. All those links are in there. Above that, if you could like, subscribe, and ring the bell, I greatly appreciate all of those. We have one more video coming out today, which will be a special selection, and then tomorrow we'll have the final episode for Post-Punk Week. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.